It's Torah Talk. It's Torah Talk. It's Torah Talk. It's Torah Talk. It's Torah Talk.
We are witnesses and watchmen of Torah.
Welcome to Torah Talk with Lou White and Mark Davidson,
a Torah Institute podcast.
It's the Torah Zone. We'll be married to Yahusha. Our wedding vows are the 10 Commandments. If you love him, keep them. We show our love by obedience. You can't have one without the other. Marriage. What does it really mean? Is it just about walking down the aisle, making vows, eating some multi-tiered cake, and wearing wedding rings? Is there a deeper connection to this custom? Is marriage still a good thing? Is it relevant for today? If so, why has such a large percentage of society abandoned it, deeming it irrelevant, restrictive, a bad thing to do? As with any subject in our life, in order to understand the deeper significance and meaning of marriage, we need to consult the one who designed it. Many people over the last century have spoken out for and against marriage, and many of them were influenced by ulterior motives and dark forces. Whoa, back up there a bit. Dark forces? Yes, friends, I said it. Dark forces, evil spirits, always striving to turn upside down the universal rules, the patterns that were set in motion for a prosperous existence.
Well, brothers and sisters, welcome to Torah Talk. We've just hit our 30th show, brother. 30 shows. That's a lot of talking.
Well, 30 years is the entry point for a priest. That's when a priest can become functional.
Yeah.
And the lips of a priest ought to preserve knowledge.
I
think that I said that was in Yeshayahu, but it's really in Malachi. Yeah. People look up Malachi. There's only 4 chapters in Malachi. But that is a powerful book, you know.
Yes.
So many things.
I would just like to say g'day to our brother Mike, who lives in Baton Rouge, who flew over to Florida, and he's getting married to his beautiful wife. And that's happened already, according to Facebook. He's just been married. So, good on you, Mike.
Praise Yahuwah for that.
Yeah.
Because he brings people together. Governments don't bring people together. A lot of people that are more secular-minded think that governments are involved, and they're really not. If you act like you're married before Yahuwah, the state has nothing to do but follow it, you know, and say, well, they must be married, you know. Now, a lot of people today are living together because they won't make that so-called civil commitment of what we call marriage. But in reality, they are married. It's just that they don't accept it. You know, they haven't made their commitment to the other person, and they don't want to get legally entangled. But they already are, you know. They just don't realize it.
Well, I've been chatting to a few people, and I put a couple of messages out on Facebook this week saying that we were going to have this conversation, and if there are any questions. A few people were talking about all the different ordinances and rituals, and most of them were Jewish, that you have to go through, you know, what is it, the kuppah, all the things that you have to go through, and veils and all sorts of things. And so, but according to Scripture, in my understanding, you just need to consummate to be married, don't you?
That's really it. Yes, you come together physically, and you're married. These adulterous and fornicating and all that sort of thing, we were commanded to not partake of those activities because that's what the pagans did. That's the way they were. That's the way they worshipped in the temples, their pagan temples. But in Acts 15, we're given those 4 things that we should do, and abstain from those 4 things. And one of those is fornication. We can't join ourselves to just anybody willy-nilly. We're united with our wife as one, and we can't defile that bed, Yeah. But actually, the family is the core unit of the family is built around that union. There's, in fact, there was a radio personality that teaches on Christian radio that was talking about the fact that we wouldn't have any marriage at all. Marriage would not exist in the world to come. He was calling it heaven. When we get to heaven, we would not be seeing any kind of marriages. Well, what he's really looking at is that two-dimensional idea that we're not going to be married to one another, but we're going to be married. Because that's what is the wedding supper about. It's about a husband, the Creator himself. We call him Yahusha, and he's marrying his bride, which we understand to be the first resurrection group, the first fruits group, and that his body will, of course, increase in size and number, but the bride are those people in a relationship with him through his covenant, and of course they would like to think that it's the Christians and they have to convert all the Jewish people, but in fact the Yahudim, or the Jewish people, are way ahead of the Christians in the covenant, in knowledge of the covenant. But
we also had another lady ask a question about, she didn't quite understand the concept of Yahuwah coming down in the flesh, because the law stated that a husband cannot remarry unless how does it go again? Unless the husband dies and she remarries or something like that. And it was fulfilled in what Yahusha did, because he divorced Israel, but then he died. Is that how it goes? So then he was able to remarry again?
yeah, he could remarry because the husband died, and that ended that contract. But you see, the renewed contract that the Christians call the New Testament is a renewal of that marriage. And so it's really interesting, because the whole goal of creation is marriage. When you look at the scriptures from the beginning to the very end, the book of Genesis, or Bereshith, starts out with Yahuwah creating the heavens and the earth, and the fulfillment, or the culmination of his creative acts, happened to be the man and the woman and their relationship with one another with him. So marriage is actually a 3-cord rope. If you realize what it is, then the bond is very, very strong. So anyway, at the very beginning we have marriage, and at the very end we have marriage. And marriage is under attack right now because the adversary hates marriage. The dragon absolutely hates marriage, because it's obvious that we are going to be his bride, and all the messengers together, even the good ones, are not ever going to be his bride. We are. That's a profound thing to think about. But all these beings that he created before he created the first man and woman, they're going to be below us in terms of rank, because we're his bride. That's amazing. But the ultimate goal of creation must be marriage, because he talks about it at the very end as well. In that relationship, he said, "Am I not a husband to Israel?" We're not talking about the state of Israel. We're talking about his people and covenant. But, marriages are, something that, it's really something that, it doesn't matter how old you are. Marriage is a mysterious thing. It's like each sex is like an alien form of life. It's one is just as foreign to the other. Even though they may have common things about them, they seem to be different creatures. And It's like when he separated the first woman from the first man, there was more than we realized that it was separated there. You know, that as I've grown to be with my wife for all these decades, the wife of my youth, I was blessed to be able to stay with. It's been a wild ride, but if you're willing to defer your will to their will, the other person's will, there's no problems. It's only when selfishness enters the thing. And when somebody or they make ultimatums. You know, ultimatums are the worst because they feel like they have no power. So the only thing they can do is make an ultimatum. And it might be the man or the woman, but a lot of times it's the woman that's making the ultimatum because she feels so powerless. But she really does wield a lot of control that she maybe doesn't realize. But anyway, the thing of it is, though, we have to understand that in that bond, that covenant we make with our Creator, which is the Ten Commandments, it makes everything make sense when you understand that selfishness is the thing that gets in your way with that too. You know, if He's not enthroned on your heart and you're doing His will, then you got problems, you know. And He even calls it a covenant of Hasid, which is sometimes translated as a covenant of love between Himself and His wife, Yisrael.
We've had a few comments from people saying we've done a few things on marriage, but we haven't really addressed the subject of dating. Do you come across young people in your business or day to day and tend to coach them, as you call it, in how to find? Because Scripture says if you can't contain yourself and you're having all these urges, find a wife or find a husband. So, do you have any advice for those sort of people in how they would go about that? I mean, some people would just say, leave it up to Yahuwah, and that's great, but do you have any more specific advice that you would share with young people?
Well, everything that you've said up to now is very basic. It's simple. It's a matter of Abraham sent out his servant to go find a wife for his son.
Yeah.
Eliezer, I believe his name was. And he